This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Stay tuned until the end for a special offer on online art classes. Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. In today's video, I'll be sharing the progress of my latest watercolor painting. Let's get started with the supplies. Other than the watercolor palette and brushes, I also used a variety of other mediums for the finishing touches. I'll be going over everything as they come up in the tutorial, and as usual, you can find links for the supplies in the video description. As usual, the first step is the underdrawing, and I actually used an IKEA glass to make the round outline for my composition. I got pretty lucky that it was perfectly sized for my watercolor sketchbook. I'm using a red erasable colored pencil from Prismacolor because it helps establish a rosy and warm undertone for my painting. While working on this most recent piece, I also learned that if I invest a bit more time into shading and detailing the underdrawing, it helps make the painting portion a lot more streamlined later on. I highly recommend an electric pencil sharpener to save time because I find myself constantly resharpening my pencil to keep the tip sharp to render the little details. I could not live without my battery-powered pencil sharpener, which sharpens it so much faster than by hand. Okay, now on to the first layer. I started off by filling up the background inside the circle with a light, solid pastel pink, which I will leave untouched for the rest of the painting. This solid pink background is the baseline that I want to keep consistent as I build up the rest of the piece, so that in the end, everything will be able to match and play off of this background color. I'll be using that same pink in the lips and later on in the blushed areas of the cheeks and nose as well. Overall, I wanted to keep the color scheme as light and simple as possible so that the artwork has a joyful, serene kind of vibe. And also, by keeping the background and subject in the pink color family, it allows me to bring special attention to the yellow leaves and also her eyes. To balance out the red underdrawing and pastel pink wash, I'm using a cool gray mixed with a bit of green to bring out some of the shadows and also to dilute the overwhelmingly red hues. I always like to introduce two opposite color families to balance out the painting and create harmony, and also just to make the subject feel more alive. So in this case, we have a warm rosy color family in the reds, and I balanced it out by introducing a complementary color family, which is the cool greens. Also, this first layer is where I benefited the most from starting with a more detailed underdrawing, as the semi-transparent nature of watercolors allowed for a lot of the drawing's details to still show through. So in a way, the drawing helps take some of the watercolor's workload, which is great for me because I'm way more familiar with drawing than I am with watercolors. Next up, we're ready for the second layer. In this step, I actually used a black ink brush marker with a felt tip combined with a black Micron pen in the smallest size to help outline the eyes and eyelashes. I have a lot more control over these ink mediums, so I felt safer using them instead of risking it with watercolors, because sometimes when I try to create thin lines with watercolors, there's a high chance I will create some unexpected results. Also, the extra fine tip on the Micron pen allowed me to create super thin lines, which gave the lashes a light and soft texture. I added a light blue ring around her irises to bring out the rich brown tones in her eyes, and also to draw in the viewer's eyes to this area of the painting. Since the rest of the piece doesn't contain much blue at all, the concentrated halo of a brightly saturated blue will help the eyes stand out. The second layer is usually where I increase the contrast of the piece by darkening the shadows and creating smooth gradients between the darkest values to the lightest values. Because I want the eyes to be the strongest focal point of the composition, I'm only using the dark black ink for the eyes and nowhere else. For other dark elements of the face, such as the nostrils or the line between the top and bottom lip, I'm only using a slightly faded and diluted black watercolor wash instead of the concentrated black ink. That way, I can guarantee that the darkest value is reserved exclusively for the eyes, which is yet another way to make them stand out and grab the viewer's attention. And finally, it's time for the finishing touches, where I'll first use colored pencils to help smooth out some of the blending and redefine some of the outlines. In the past, I've made the mistake of relying too heavily on the colored pencils to do the bulk of the work because I was simply too intimidated by watercolors. So my watercolors were only used to create the most basic, flat, color blocking underpainting, and then I would essentially layer a full colored pencil drawing on top of it. And ultimately, I felt like the watercolors in my older pieces didn't contribute much to the overall aesthetic of the piece because so much of it was covered by my colored pencils. Now, after some practice with watercolors and feeling more comfortable with the medium, I realized that I love the aesthetic of my pieces so much more when I actually use the watercolors to do the bulk of the work, and then only reserve the colored pencils for the final touches. When there are certain effects that I cannot achieve yet through watercolor, I can use colored pencils to help fill in those gaps, such as smoothing out the blending on the skin, or darkening some of the shadows where the paper texture is showing through too roughly, or by exaggerating the blush on the cheeks to give the character a bit more personality. The pencils were also the perfect tools to add some freckles and moles to her skin texture, making the face more interesting to look at, and also humanizing the subject a bit by introducing some beautiful human flaws, so that she doesn't end up looking like an overly face-tuned perfect alien. And lastly, I'll be using a white gel pen to sprinkle in some shimmering final highlights. The white gel pen is an easy way to layer white on top of watercolor because it works well on paper and shows up quite nicely against a darker background. But you can also use white acrylic or gouache for a similar effect. Though highlights are super fun, I still try to use them in moderation because I don't want them to overpower the rest of the painting. And also, I try to control the size of the highlights because I don't want them to be too large in comparison to the smaller, finer details. And that about wraps up today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope I was able to teach you something or inspire you in some way. Please let me know if you'd like to see more watercolor videos from me, as I have definitely fallen in love with the medium and I plan on making so many more of these. And if you're interested in adopting the original painting, I do have her listed in my shop at happyd-artist.com. And if you're interested in learning more about how to paint and draw, I have lots of art educational content on my Patreon page, including exclusive video tutorials, step-by-step photo tutorials, live streams, podcasts, and even surprise art gift boxes. All available at patreon.com/happydartist. I'd love to have you join my Patreon family. Also, if you want to check out more artworks, works in progress, and just random daily artist adventures, feel free to check out my Instagram, and you can follow me at the handle @happydartist. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and supporting the art community. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers classes taught by experts and designed for real life, so you can learn and grow at your own pace with short classes that fit your busy routine. Right now is the perfect time to dive into your creative New Year's resolutions for the year 2020. Skillshare's thousands of online art classes make it easy for you to accomplish real growth towards your art goals. Whether you're interested in learning painting, drawing, design, photography, there's always a class for you. I've especially loved the classes that focus on how to use art as a form of self-expression, such as this one taught by Mary Andrew on drawing as self-discovery, and this one on discovering your creative voice taught by the wonderful Chantel Martin. Skillshare's affordable premium membership, which costs less than $10 a month, gives you unlimited access to all of their tens of thousands of classes. So join more than 7 million creators in learning with Skillshare today. Click the link in the description to get 2 free months of premium membership and explore your creativity. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!